This video is part of a presentation on denial of service on RTC systems. This is the seventh part, which is about evading RTC security protection and discussion of solutions. So what we saw in the previous slides showed that at most just 3 attack machines. However, when rate limiting is in place, what an attacker could do, and would often do, is to distribute the attack. In such cases, the attacker would start slowly from just one machine, increasing the attack rate to try to find what the rate limitation is. Once the attacker knows what the rate is, they can add more attacker nodes that keep under the same rate limit and keep adding more nodes until the system breaks. Additionally, it is important to note that not all DoS attacks require speed. For example, some memory leak issues can be triggered every few seconds, which will not cause any alarms on any security solution which watches the packet rate. And some issues, such as infinite loops or a crash, will simply require just one network packet or message. So how do we fix this stuff? Well, I have no generic answer, but after picking so much on rate limiting, I have to say that it definitely helps. It is a very useful tool in your arsenal and can be quite flexible. Various different components can have different rate limits, but one definitely has to find the sweet spot for each of them. And this is, of course, depending on your normal traffic, traffic that occurs during busy times, traffic that only happens when under attack. I think it is extremely important when working on solutions to keep in mind that distributed attacks are in fact pretty common. In the demos, you might have noticed the invite scan that was going on while I'm trying to record my demo. Well, that was a slow and distributed attack. In the past, a botnet called Celity distributed an open source version of Subvicious across a large number of infected machines to run SIP attacks all over the internet. Now you might be tempted to monitor everything and log all the data. Don't. Be selective in what goes into your logs, because anyway no one has the time to read through everything. This can easily become the source of a denial of service. We did not touch much on security issues that are related to memory or code security issues, but I think with fuzzing, RTC software can be made much more robust, at least against a certain class or certain classes of DoS attacks. If you're a developer and your software does not compile with memory sanitizers such as SON, it is likely that there are major problems that could be looked into. Um, Buying more can work. Of course, one could always buy more. Buying more resources, load balancers, and so on. This is obviously a good way to go, but there are limits to such a solution. I could not avoid mentioning security testing, of course. It is actually useful. It is how you can learn that certain security issues actually apply to your RTC system. And of course, that's what we do on a day-to-day basis. However, I think that testing should also be done internally, not just from third-party uh, service providers. Since when testing, one can identify bottlenecks with each iteration and start addressing each issue as it is found. So to conclude, we have seen flooding of the SIP servers, TCP and TLS flooding. Then we talked about TLS certificate authentication flooding. We described a security issue that affected a proprietary WebRTC signaling protocol. Then we looked at RTP bleed as a denial of service attack, invalidated the TLS certificate hello packets, and flooding the recording system with RTP. We had some slides on flooding packet captures and the firewall. Then we talked about attacks specific to calls, subverting the IPS to block SIP trunk by spoofing. Then we looked at flooding the IPS so that it becomes useless. And finally, we had some tips on evasions, methods, and our thoughts on solutions. So I've come to the conclusion here. I would really like to thank Alfred Farrugia for his help. Without him, the machines set up for the demos and the demos themselves would have been much harder to get going. And of course, we've been working on Subvicious Pro, which will be made available as a private beta um, sometime this year. This tool was used for most of the attacks that I demoed and is meant to help vendors and service providers test their RTC equipment and software. You may subscribe to the private beta at subvicious.pro. And these are some ways to get in touch. I'll provide further references in the notes below. Thank you for watching our presentation. I hope you enjoyed it.